before we're talking about truth in terms of concordance, like when the appearance and the reality are concordant, when they're the same, then it's true. When they're different, like a mirage in water, then they're false. So, like the self, when we're talking about in terms of the person, like the person has this false appearance. Other phenomena like books and so on have a false appearance. They appear to be out there, to be existing by way from their own side and independent and so on. That independence is true for those minds, for those concealing minds. So it's called a truth for a concealer. A book, for example, is a truth for concealer because it's true for it's true for the mind which has the appearance of it as being inherent. So, inherent existence. So, another way to explain that is phenomena appear to be inherently existent. That inherent existence is false, but it's true for these, and it's false, and it's true for these false minds. So these false minds that have the false appearance, it's just a truth for them. So in other words, you have these minds that are mistaken, and books and so on are only true for those minds. They're not really true. So this is a little bit confusing because you have like all these kind of statements about truth and falsity, but perhaps a better way or a more simple way to understand it is that you have other than these direct perceptions of emptiness, most other minds are false. Most other minds have false appearance. They're mistaken. Now, because pot and book and table and TV and so on appear to these mistaken minds, they're called conventional truth. That's probably an easier way to understand it for now. Like later on, we can go into the other explanation.
So they conceal the truth.
The minds conceal the truth.
No, the object conceals the truth.
The object doesn't conceal.
I see. So the object only exists because the mind perceives it. So it's the mind that perceives misperceives the truth.
Yes, they're mistaken minds that misapprehend the things we see day to day, like the TV, the book, and so on. Now, these things exist, right? Like the Buddha still sees them. They still perform a function. Like we can sit down and read the book, so we can interact with it, we can use it. But they don't exist in the way they appear. And these minds that have this false appearance of things being really out there, being really true and real, they're called concealers. So, books and so on, they're called truth for concealers or conventional truths. It's a little bit hard to understand.
So I guess perhaps put another way is saying the book, for example. The book exists from its own side. We see it as exists on its side because there's a label of that shape of that thing as a book, and because we can interact with it, we think it as outside. Therefore, we think it's like it just puffed out of the thin air that it appears as a book. But in reality, books require to make from paper, which require from sand, which require from trees and all that kind of thing. And those are the truth behind the foundation making of the book itself, and because we don't see that, therefore it's been concealed in a way.
So it's dependent arising.
Dependent arising.
It's dependent arising. It's not that it's empty. It's that it's dependent arising.
Yes.
Yes, that's really good that you brought up dependent arising, because the kind of special features of Nagarjuna's philosophy, the middle way philosophy, is dependent arising. Like Nagarjuna says that. Hang on, I'll try to remember the quote. He says that the meaning of emptiness is dependent arising, and dependent arising is the meaning of emptiness. So there's a lot of, I can't remember the quote for now, but anyway, there's a lot of talk about dependent arising in Nagarjuna's teachings, and dependent arising is basically the meaning of emptiness. There's different ways of explaining that, but it's kind of like you said, like the book appears to be independent, dependent. There's different ways it can appear to be independent. One of the ways is like independent from thought. So the book, it seems as if, like, if no one were perceiving it, if no one were looking at it, it would still exist. It's like something that comes before thought. And when we think about the book, when we perceive the thought, when we perceive the book and look at it and so on, it's like we're hitting something out there, independent from our minds. And
so I guess you're kind of saying that, like, in relation to the five aggregates, for example. So if we don't see it, we don't touch it, we don't feel it, it doesn't exist in that way. But as soon as we turn around, we seize it or we touched it.
We name it.
And we name it, we know that that's the shape of it, and therefore it exists from as a book, for example.
Yes.
So in that way, it's like we think of it as a separate entity.
Yes.
Just because we don't see it, just because we don't touch it, it doesn't exist. But as soon as we come to contact with it, without aggregates, it becomes exist.
Yes, it's like that. Now, you have to be a bit careful with this. Like what I've tried to explain today is kind of very, very rough. But the way Tsongkhapa, the way Lama Tsongkhapa kind of recommends that we proceed about understanding emptiness is we go from the rough to the fine. So you start by studying the coarse assertions. You start by understanding coarse ideas about self, very gross ideas about self, and then you move slowly and slowly to more subtle ideas. So the in Tsongkhapa's text, The Essence of Eloquence, he says that, to paraphrase, you have to understand the lower schools of tenets in order to understand the higher schools of tenets. So you start, in Buddhism you have 4 schools of tenets, so four schools which are of philosophy, and some of them have very coarse, very rough assertions, some of them have finer assertions, and you start by working very hard to understand the coarse ones, and then you move up, and then you really get an idea of emptiness, and you don't have this danger of falling into nihilism. All the time with emptiness, there's a danger of apprehending it wrong, and then thinking nothing exists even conventionally, and then cause and effect don't exist, so I can just do what I want. So party time, off to go or whatever. So there is this danger with emptiness, but so please understand that what I explained today is kind of very rough. You have to, we all together have to try and learn about emptiness, to study it, and then after a lot of effort, like in Tsongkhapa's example, one can finally understand emptiness. Nagarjuna says that in relation to that, about the danger of nihilism, the danger of thinking nothing exists at all. Those who misapprehend emptiness will attain disaster. Those who understand it correctly will attain high status, so birth of a human or god, and then finally liberation. So therefore, we should make effort in working on emptiness. That's from Advice of Garland to the King, the Ratnavali. That's when Nagarjuna talks about that. So today, just say something very rough about the two truths, very rough about emptiness, and then later on we try and study and hear and think more and more about it, and then finally.
How do you think about it?
How do you think about
No,
it?
I don't. I hardly entertain much thought.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you think? Why do you think about it? I mean, sorry. Well, why do you think about anything?
Why do you think about anything?
Yes. What is the point of it? Having. I mean, I can think logically.
Yes, this is a very good point. Why can't we just stop thinking? Why can't we just kind of go non-conceptual straight away? This is very interesting. Now, the example that it gives in the text is two branches, like the branches of a tree. You can make a fire by rubbing two branches together, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that once the fire is made, like you can make a big blaze, and then it can consume the original sticks that made the fire, right? So you use the sticks to make the fire, and then later the fire burns the sticks. So likewise, first of all, we have to use conceptuality to understand these things. We have to use reasoning, and like the sticks that consume the so we have to use conceptuality. Hang on, I'll say it better. We have to use the sticks of conceptuality to make the fire of non-conceptuality.
Okay.
When the non-conceptual fire is ablaze, then it will consume the conceptuality. It will consume the sticks of conceptuality. So at the start, we don't have anything else to work with. That's just the way. That's just where we are. We just have this conceptuality, and that's all we have. We have to work with it. Now, what do you think about when you think about emptiness? Well, you have to use reasoning to understand it. You have to use logic. In Tsongkhapa's system, he emphasizes the study of the Indian logic texts by Dharmakirti and Dignaga. Now, I don't think. I think it's very important to understand logic, one kind of system of logical thought. Dharmakirti's and Dignaga's text is one of them, but I think in the West as well we have systems of logic and systems of logical thought. So I think you can use those as well. The point is we have to try and think logically, learn how to understand things in terms of reasoning. We can't just go straight to emptiness or the Four Truths. This is our only way.
It's discipline.
It's like a discipline, yeah.
Okay.
It's like something we have to discipline our minds to think logically and to be able to cognize things in dependence on reasoning.
Okay.
Okay,
It's very stable, isn't it? Does it create a stability?
I think so. Yes. Like if you can do that, like if you can do that, I think it's very worthwhile, very beneficial. Like the afflictive emotions we have, ultimately they have their basis in this misapprehension of self, but on a more superficial level, they're based on wrong thinking, based on not thinking logically.
Yeah.
Like when we get angry, there's a lot of incorrect thinking. When you think, actually, there's no point in getting angry. Like it doesn't accomplish anything. Like in Shantideva's text, the Bodhisattva Charivatara, it says that, if something can be done about it, then there's no need to get angry. There's nothing to be done about it. There's no need to get angry. So that's to kind of paraphrase Shantideva, but really there's no good reason for getting angry. But so if you can learn to think logically, like and to understand things using reasoning, then you can counter that. I think you can counter. Even if you don't realize emptiness, you can counter these kind of very rough, afflictive emotions that one has. So it's really important to try and study about Buddhism as much as we can, and to learn to learn about Buddhism, and to learn all these concepts. And in the beginning, to think about them conceptually.
I guess that's also comes down to being aware of your own thoughts. Otherwise, you won't be able to pick up your own emotions when it comes, and or whatever concepts that you comes in the mind. You won't be. You just go through it day by day, and just like what you used to. Unless you actually have the awareness thinking that, oh, this is a conceptual that I've created or something like that, or this is something like, of emotions that I have, only then that you'll be able to, I guess, analyze it and a little bit deeper and understand whether its existence was true or not, and so forth, and all, like what you have said. So
yeah, that's that's right. Like what was I going to say? Yes, it's important to study so we know what's going on in our minds. Like we said at the start, when we approach Buddhism, we're going to look after our minds. We're going to say that internal happiness is more important. And part of this looking inwards, with the looking inwards, we have to recognize what's going on in our minds. So maybe next week we can talk about that a bit more. That's when I thought next week we can talk a bit about the Four Truths, and within that there's in the truth of the origin. Normally you talk a bit about the afflictions, the different states of minds we have, like anger and attachment and so forth, and then that's a very important part, to be aware of these different states of minds. And then how do we come to that awareness? Well, we have to understand what these states of minds are, like what's their nature, what's their definition, what's their function, and so on. So I think that's a good point. Any other questions?
It's really helpful. Tendencies. Yeah, because I guess they are thought forms. I just don't think of them as thought forms.
Oh.
I don't. I think thoughts are something like sentences.
What about you, David?
Can you just quickly explain again this ultimate truth?
Okay, sure. So, ultimate truth means truth for an ultimate mind. Ultimate mind means direct realization of emptiness. So means a mind that directly perceives emptiness, just as in the way we receive this book. Like without having to rely on conceptuality, on thinking this is this, relying on words. So does that make sense?
Probably not.
Okay. So
I guess maybe
mm,
another way of thinking is because we have a lot of conceptual mind. Everything we see we label with concept. Right? That's a TV. That's a concept. We label. That's a label. So that's a conventional thoughts, conventional truth about that, because we see it as a TV due to label. Ultimately, is that we don't. Is that we can understand. We see it as a TV, but we know that it's not. Doesn't exist by itself. Would that be correct?
it doesn't exist independently.
Independent by itself. It has components. It has parts. It has wires. All that. And if we see. As soon as we see a TV, we don't see it as a TV. We see all these parts, all the things together, that comes together as a TV. That, in a way, can be seen as the ultimate mind or the ultimate truth of the TV. You know. Is that clear? A little bit
Amazing,
clear?
isn't it?
Yeah.
So Buddha, when Buddha sees something, he doesn't see it as that. He sees all the parts that comes to it, that comes to something. You know, it comes to an object or comes to an emotions or mind or thoughts. That all the other parts that comes to it, and therefore that's the ultimate truth, I think.
Yeah. So ultimate emptiness is the ultimate truth. Basically, emptiness is our ultimate truths, and the emptiness is kind of like what Ming was saying. Like it means the lack of this false self, the lack of things existing in the way they appear. So, and emptiness, like we were saying just now, emptiness is called an ultimate truth because it's true for an ultimate mind. It's the object of an ultimate mind. It's the object of the direct perception of emptiness.
Emptiness doesn't mean nothing, eh?
It doesn't mean, yeah, this is a good point. Yeah, emptiness doesn't mean nothing at all. It means that it's the absence of something that never ever existed. So, so like the rope snake. We were talking about the rope snake. Now, there's no such thing as a rope snake here. Now, when we can be frightened by kind of an appearance of the rope snake, but there's no rope snake in actuality. Yeah, it's just the rope on the ground and the darkness and our mind that have caused it to be seen as a rope snake. So it's like that. Doesn't mean the rope isn't existent. It just means there's no snake. That's kind of what it's talking about there. And so yeah, like when it's important. Like in tantra, you always say, you know, everything becomes empty. You know, tomba nido juro. Like, but it's not talking about just making your mind blank. It's talking about the same kind of emptiness that we were talking about today, and that's in the philosophical texts. It's talking about the emptiness of the middle way school, basically.
Is emptiness a happy place?
Is emptiness a happy place? Well, define happy place.
Joyful.
Well,
Sky TV.
Sky TV, yeah. Sky TV, yeah.
Isn't it the union of bliss and emptiness? They talk about the union of bliss and emptiness.
That's a bit different. Like that's talking about Heist Yoga Tantra, but I mean emptiness is the a happy place in the sense that it's going to take you to a happy place. Like it, you know, like we said in that quotation from Nagarjuna from the Ratnavali, the Precious Garland. those who correctly apprehend emptiness will attain happiness and ultimately
Liberation.
liberation. Yeah.
So there you are.
Why is that? Because you understand emptiness, then and you meditate on it and you generate this direct perception of emptiness. It becomes an antidote for all the afflictive emotions, to anger, attachment, and you can completely eliminate them from the mind. When you do that, when you've got rid of all the afflictions, that's liberation basically. So then you don't have any kind of real disturbance to your mental peace. This is what this is what it means by like those who correctly understand emptiness will attain liberation. It means that the stopping of in the Buddhist context of rebirth through the power of afflictions and action, and in kind of if we're going to talk about it in terms of like just kind of Western psychology, like the stopping of all kind of negative states of mind.
So where does the mind reside?
Well, you mean in liberation and so on?
No, I mean in the Tibetan use of the word.
Where does the mind reside? Well, you have a little bit of discussion of that, and again, Highest Yoga Tantra, like the mind rides on the wind, like the wind is it's a subtle wind which is a mount for the mind. It's explained in the in some of the Highest Yoga texts. Generally, in sutra, in the non-tantric texts, it doesn't talk about where the mind resides in terms of like what I think you're asking about.
It's just quite common. I've often heard Tibetan people say, well, the mind's not actually, your brain, it's your heart. Ken used to say that. Your brain is not your mind, it's in your heart.
Yes, that's related to Highest Yoga Tantra, I think, like the mind, the wind that is at the mount for the mind generally resides at the heart. And then when we conceive of ourselves, like I mean, there can be different conceptions, but we often conceive of, when we're talking about ourselves, when we talk about our minds, we often make gestures here or whatever. It kind of suggests that we have this idea of our mind existing at the level of our hearts anyway.
Because I think that as a Westerner, when I use the word mind, I think of my cognitive processes.
Well, mind, the definition of mind is that which is clear and reflexive. That's that which is reflexive and knowing. So it means let's see. Basically, it's saying the mind's like a mirror, and it takes the aspect of whatever phenomena it comes in contact with. So when you look in the mirror, you see your face. Like the mirror just takes the aspect of whatever is before it. Like the mind is like that. The mind, whatever object it is, it comes in contact with through various means. It takes that aspect, it reflects it, and it experiences it. Yes. So that's how His Holiness explains reflexive and knowing. Like in Tibetan, it's Selshing Rigpa, and His Holiness says like reflexive means it takes the aspect of the object, and knowing means it experiences it. So that's what we're talking about with mind. We're not talking about the brain or anything physical like that.
It's very helpful.
Okay, maybe we we stop there? What do you think? Any more questions?
Really?
No.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you, John Paula.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.